Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where last episode we just got all of our Eve modules heading on over to Eve. And at this point we need to find out which one's going to get there first. So this one's at T-minus 142 days, 4 hours. This one is going to be at 158 days, so that's after it. This one is going to be at 166 days, so that's after it. This one is going to be in 129 days, so that's the first one so far. And this one will be in 158 days. Okay, so the Gilly Eve fuel transit is going to be the first one. Fine, we can work with that. And we'll have some decent amount of time to maneuver in the Eve system as well. And we're going to need it, because this has a very low thrust to weight on it. So, let's get our creaky microphone stand in the correct position, and let's get zoomed on out here. We want to focus on Eve for right now, and when we come in here, we want to make sure it's going retrograde from Gilly. Okay, so we might need to flip this. What if we just simply burned retrograde here? That's a lot of delta V. Okay, well, what we can do instead is we can essentially burn here a minimal amount to break, and that's still a lot of delta V. That's going to be about 900, and then up here, which would be quite a large number of days. We're not going to have time to get all of that done, but we can then come up here and do something like this to flip it around. And then do our intercept with Eve, something along the lines of that. Now, I don't know how much DV that maneuver actually is, but that's fine. So what we'll do is we will... I'm trying to delete this node. There we go. Excellent. What we'll do is we will move on in here. And I mean, we may want to just intercept Gilly in reverse. I don't know. We'll have to look at how much delta V that's going to end up being. Also, don't want it moved quite there. Let's stop this warp. And I want it moved there. Okay, and let's continue this warp. Fantastic. So here in about another 30 days, we'll be able to see what our options are going to be. Okay, so let's go ahead and flip on over to this maneuver node. This is going to be a pretty lengthy burn, so let's go ahead and physics warp this, and we will get this started, honestly, right about now. So we're just going to physics warp this burn on through here. As I said, this is going to be a pretty lengthy burn. This one is a burn time of like 15 more minutes, so on 4x, it's going to be a lot. A very, very lengthy amount of time. So we're going to burn this on down, and of course we need to have enough fuel on this to land on Gilly. And once we're in orbit of Gilly, it'll take almost no fuel. But I do want to get that set up as soon as we can. So we could theoretically think about running a maneuver like over here. Now, I'm not going to do this while we're working on this, right? Okay, that was exciting. Well, we're just going to point retrograde here, and we'll just keep an eye on this. That should be all we need. So while we're doing that, the question then becomes... That's a decent chunk of DV. Okay. The question then becomes, how do we want to do this Gilly intercept? I think we'll have enough DV, to be clear. I really, really do think that this will be fine. Hello, Eve. Out in the distance there, looking magnificent, as usual. I do want to check to see where our others are currently. Okay, so yeah, these 4 are on their way. That is completely okay. And you can see here, our time to escape is going up, but not in any real hurry. So we're going to continue bringing this on down. It shouldn't be too much longer. Well, it'll be maybe a couple more minutes, actually. We're still like 2 minutes out from the periapsis, so even on 4x time acceleration, it can get a little long on these burns, and this is to be expected. The point of this is fuel efficiency. Unlike the Ascent module, where the point is sheer, unadulterated power. Excellent. So let's go ahead and zoom on back in. You can see here we're starting to develop a bit of a curve to our escape, and in fact, this is starting to move, which means that we're getting close to being done with this burn. And that is fantastic. We do still have 2 kilometers per second, which should be plenty to get us onto Gilly, in all honesty. I do wish we weren't moving retrograde. That's something that I should have adjusted a long time ago. But alas, here we are. And we have enough Delta V to make this happen anyway. I'm quite certain of this. So we'll bring this on in. And we're about 5 days away from the Eve escape right now. We're going to be passing 2 kilometers per second left very soon. But ultimately, I mean, that's not that terrible. Like, we've got lots of Delta V still. Technically, we have enough to land on the planet. If we, you know, had parachutes or heat shields or anything along those lines, which we don't. So yeah, we can definitely see here that our escape is getting close to being fully burned off, rather. Our velocity has reduced dramatically. So let's let this continue to burn. And we should be done very, very soon here. This is exponential, so we're going to back off of this burn soon. Or at the very least, we're backing off of the time warp. There we go. And let's just finish off this burn as soon as we can. There we go. Okay, so let's just take a look at what an encounter with Gilly would look like in terms of DV. Now, we can see here that our ascending node, we're going the wrong direction. If we were to burn up here, we burn retrograde and flip it around like that. That's only 500 meters per second. That's really not too bad, and that actually gets us pretty close to an encounter. Pretty close indeed. Huh. Very, very close to an encounter there. If we were to toss in... Yeah, I don't like these radial burns. If we were to toss in a normal, because this is at the descending node, so that's very convenient for us. If we were to toss in a normal change, or rather a plane change, simultaneously, we may be able to find what we need, or very, very close to it. Look at that. That is incredibly close. Incredibly, incredibly close. Just seeing if we can get an actual encounter here. Why aren't we getting an encounter? Ah, I see. A small inclination issue, it looks like. Well, more specifically, it's because we need to time this slightly differently. We need to time it when our closest approach is here. And then we're going to remove this. Hang on, I did that incorrectly. We do want some of that. We want it to be going like so. 0.7 degrees, 0.6. This is close enough. Or at least it should be. Okay. So something along the lines of that. Let's bring it back to here. And see about tweaking this again. I feel like we can get a pretty easy approach here. Okay, so if we were to bring this back in... Ooh, that was way too much. That was way, way too much. Let's bring that back. Something along the lines of that. Then if we were to burn radially... Hello. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Let's see about bringing this up a little bit. That should be absolutely fine. Yep, that'll do the trick. Close enough. 481.5 meters per second, and this gets us a really nice encounter. Now, we can't actually warp to that because that is node in T-minus 23 days. What we need to do at this point is head back to the tracking station, and we need to see which of these is next. There are 4 remaining at this point. We now have our Gilly Eve fuel transit going. So, the Eve module deployable. That is going to be in 29 days, 1 hour. Charlie. 37 days. So deployable is still better. The Ascent module, 28 days. Okay, and let's see here. There should be one more too. This one. 13 days. Okay, so this one is definitely the one that we do next. How much DV do we have here? Okay, we have plenty. Excellent. And we are, of course, going to hop over to Eve. And this should be a very, very... Oh, right, we can't do maneuvers. We'll have to do this the old-fashioned way. That's okay. We'll just go ahead and warp to here. We'll warp a few days on ahead here. Fantastic. And then we'll need to check when this maneuver node was going to be, because I'm not exactly sure. We can see here, it should be somewhere around here. So we can see when the Gilly Eve fuel transit's going to be getting up there, and it's definitely slowing down as it approaches that apoapsis. So we're just going to stick to retrograde, orbital retrograde, and that's the comsat there. We are going to go ahead and burn now. Full on retrograde. Whoa, we actually have signal strength here. So I guess this doesn't fully block the antenna. That's great to know. Well, let's go ahead and bring this on down. And we're mostly just looking to circularize this. Nothing too fancy. So that won't be too much of a burn. There we go. We're now in orbit. And that means that this one is quote-unquote done. It's not 100% complete, but it's pretty close. All we'll need to do is our final approach and bring it down a little closer, and then after that we will need to drop it into the atmosphere. Excellent. So we will stop this burn about now. That's about circularized. Let's head on back to the tracking station, and we've got a couple more of these to do. We need to check our timing on our maneuver node for our fuel transit. Let's see here. The fuel transit is going to be in 9 days. Okay, that's fine. So then the Ascent module, the deployable, and Charlie. The Descent module is going to be in 15 days. So that's not the next event, for sure. The Charlie module is... Hang on, should we just add alarms for each of these? I don't think we can without having comms, though. That's the issue. So the Charlie module is going to be in 23 days. The fuel transit is going to be in 9 days. The Ascent module is going to be in 15. Which I think means that the fuel transit is the next one. 15 days, 23 days, yeah. So the fuel transit maneuver is the next one. So we'll go ahead and fly that. And this will be a somewhat extensive burn. It won't be as extensive as the last one, but it'll be up there. Yeah, 6 minutes, 8 seconds. That's fine. We'll go ahead and maneuver around towards that maneuver node. And we'll make our way up to this maneuver. So, this is a very nice encounter here. That encounter will be in, like, 28 days, 27. Okay, so that'll be after the other burns. That's good to know. This will be the last event, then, until we're at least stable. It's not the last event, don't get me wrong, but it's the last event until we're stable, and stability is our goal for this particular episode. So we want to burn this at T-minus 3 minutes and 4 seconds, so we will go ahead and warp towards that. And we'll burn this in just a couple seconds here. Now. And we'll go ahead and physics warp this burn, because this is going to be fairly lengthy otherwise. I mean, at X4 time acceleration, though, it won't even be 2 minutes, so that's not too bad. Excellent. So we'll just get our orientation flipped, and we would have had to flip it anyway to get captured by Gilly, so this is not wasted Delta V. Because we would have to... We would have to actually flip our orientation at Gilly otherwise. So, it's kind of... I think it's more efficient to do it here, actually. Although, because we're... Well, this is at the apoapsis. Fair enough. Fair enough. Another 200 meters per second in this burn, and this is the second to last burn that we're going to need out of this today. This is not the final burn, of course, under any circumstances. And yeah, it's going to be about 23 days until there, so we should definitely be able to get these others done, I think. About 90 more meters per second here. Make that 60. Make that 30. I'm going to come out of the physics warp now. And we'll get this last little bit just as precisely as we can. A few fractions of a meter per second make a big difference here in terms of this encounter. So we want to try to nail this. I think that's pretty nailed. Let's take a look here. Yeah, that's pretty nailed. Fantastic. Now, I don't really care what direction we're going around Gilly here. That kind of doesn't matter. Let's head on back at this point to the tracking station. We've got a couple more braking burns to do. So let's take a look at which one is next. It is definitely not going to be the fuel transit. We know that that is going to have a periapsis in 23 days. So at this point, the deployable module. The deployable module is currently here. When is its periapsis going to be? Is it already by? We may have to evaluate this. Let's fly this and see if there's something going on in here that tells us what happened. I may have moved past this one accidentally, if it was very close. I suppose it's possible. Yeah, I think I did. Can we just burn pro target? We might be able to. Eve is right there. This is basically prograde. Maybe we need to burn retrograde and slow it down a little bit. Let's see what this does. We can't do maneuvers. Okay. Let's see what happens if we burn retrograde. I feel like slowing down might be the way to go here. Because we definitely seem to have lost this encounter at some point. Yeah, this is the way to go. This is definitely the way to go. We're going to have to do this break anyway. So let's bring it on back. And let's just keep an eye on that separation. This is apparently after an orbit, which I'm not entirely sure why. The only thing I can think of is that I accidentally flew past the encounter. But we're kind of on the wrong side of Eve for that to happen, right? So, I don't know. Something clearly went wrong here, and I'm not sure exactly what. But we'll bring this on in. I mean, like I said, this braking needed to happen anyway. And I mean, if this has to be in a year, maybe that's okay? Maybe. Well, this definitely seems to be doing the trick here. In a year, anyway. Okay. So, we're bringing it on around. Continuing to slow down. That should have been an encounter there, I think. We might need to go prograde here. And we might, if we can, need to thrust limit this. Because we can only go max thrust. No, we can't thrust limit it. Okay. That's going to get a little bit spicy then, I feel like. Where'd it go? Way up there. In 761 years? That's getting worse. That's getting objectively worse. This is in 1478 years. That's too many years. There's no doubt about it. What if at this point we just burned pro-target? Hypothetically. Just do a get closer burn. We're very, very close, right? Like, we can see Eve from here. It's right there. So maybe if we just try to catch up to it a little bit. Let's see what that does. Like, that pushes this back, right? And yeah. I mean, that's a thing. But I kind of don't like it. And I want to bring this back around. We know that we really can't go much further than this. So we'll try to tweak it when we're, like, up here, maybe. And see what we can do. So just bring this on back. And that's too much. That is too much. So we're going to have to just try this a little bit more. We've got plenty of Delta V to make this happen. It's not a concern. I was definitely hoping that this wouldn't happen. That's why I was attempting to get all these done correctly. But let's go ahead and switch to the Eve Ascent module. And see when that is going to have its periapsis. Okay. That's going to be in 5 days. Eve module Charlie. We'll switch to that one. How long is that going to be? Eve module Charlie is going to be in 13 days. So it is going to be the Ascent module. And that's our deployable science, which we do kind of need. So that's definitely interesting. But let's head over to this one here. Now, these three are all pretty much going to be ready very soon. And we already have 2 already there, so that's completely fine. Let's go ahead and focus our camera on Eve. And right here, this is such a nice encounter. Right here, we are going to bring this on in and circularize. About like that. And we'll warp to that maneuver. Hello, Eve. This is going to be a pure retrograde burn. Fantastic. And let's flip around to retrograde here. T-minus 13 seconds allegedly, but we should probably burn it now because we know that this isn't accurate for this craft. So let's go ahead and burn it. I'm going to burn it at T-minus 1 minute. Excellent. We'll see how accurate that is. I don't know that it's at all accurate, if I'm honest. But we do know that we have enough delta V to make this happen. We are now in a proper orbit. Fantastic. And we're just going to continue to attempt to circularize. Just continuing to point retrograde. So this will get our ascent module in a parking orbit. Our mining module is also in a parking orbit. And our Gili Eve fuel transit is on its way. Excellent. Do we have enough fuel in this thing to be able to do this? Like as is, without a refuel? I think we might. And that'd be very nice if we did indeed have that. Still another 900 meters per second to go here, according to the maneuver node. We'll see how accurate that actually is. I'm going to physics warp here as we bring our orbit on down. Okay. Starting to look reasonable. We'll kill the physics warp. Allegedly another 300 meters per second in this burn to go. I'm watching that periapsis to ensure that it doesn't drop into the atmosphere. That would be catastrophic if it did. We'll stop this at 100 meters. Or 100 kilometers, rather. 100 meters would be insane. Okay, that's good enough. We can circularize this more if necessary later on. And I do believe that we have sufficient fuel in this to land. That is my belief. So that's wonderful. Let's go ahead and switch back to, for now, I actually want to switch to the fuel transit and see how long that is until that encounter. It seems like that was the longest one out before we discovered the other issue. That is currently 18 days out. Okay, so we want to switch over to the Charlie module. There we go. And the Charlie module, we are going to want to point retrograde. And focus Eve. Out here is completely fine. And, oh yeah, we can't do a maneuver node. We are just going to warp here. Excellent. As far as the deployable module goes, we might be able to play around with some radial burns and see if we can get ourselves a closer approach. But 4 for 5 isn't awful. So we'll just flip over to retrograde here, and we will begin our burn. Excellent. I'm going to physics warp this burn. This will be likely a not super long burn, but a somewhat long burn. Already down below 1.2 kilometers per second, and that's fantastic. And our Eve escape is moving. Very shortly now, we will get into a parking orbit, and we'll just leave it in said parking orbit. Good enough. Okay, so next up, let's go ahead and switch over to our Gili Eve fuel transit and get this in orbit around Gili. So our next play, of course, is to focus on Gili, and then we're going to do a retrograde burn at this periapsis. That was way too much. Something along the lines of, not that, but rather that will do nicely. We'll go ahead and head over to that maneuver node, and we will warp to this location. It's going to be about 10 days out. And then we'll maybe mess around with the deployable and see if we can get a sooner encounter. That'd be nice. Okay, so where is Gilly at? We should definitely be able to see Gilly by the time we're doing this maneuver. Oh, hello. There's Gilly. A wild Gilly approaches. Okay, so 1 minute, 12.5 seconds. We'll go ahead and warp towards that. And we will burn this now. We'll physics warp this burn. Excellent. Got more than enough fuel to land on Gilly, absolutely. And of course we've got our mining unit right there, and we'll try to head down in that same general vicinity. We do have a KER on this, so that should be completely fine. Need about another 60 meters per second here, and we will be entering orbit of Gilly momentarily. Let's come out of the physics warp. We only need 10 more meters per second. Okay, I'm going to throttle that down a little bit as we circularize. And we'll call this a parking orbit. Excellent. Okay, let's just hop over to this guy real quick. And I want to see if maybe we can get ourselves a reasonable encounter with perhaps a radial burn? Which way is radial out going to take us? Let's find out. This would be a lot easier if we had access to maneuvers, but alas, we do not. Let's see what we've got here. Okay. That is pulling apart our separation out there. So maybe radial in. Like, the unfortunate thing here is we're so close to Eve. I wish we knew where Eve was when we were up here. Well, it's slightly ahead of us, right? Maybe if we did just burn hard retrograde. I keep coming back to that idea. I just keep coming back to it. I mean, this is giving us lots of encounters, right? But these are at really awkward times. This one is in 23 years. This one is in 22 years. Like, these encounters are all over the place. I really wish we could use maneuvers right now. Okay, that's in allegedly 12 years. 11 years. 10 years. Interesting. 9 years. 7. I wouldn't have expected that it would take, you know, this much fuel, but sure. Our encounter wants to be here, right? That's where we want the encounter to be. What is going on with this? This is like almost an encounter right here. Hello, what is this? That's in 4 years. This one's in 3. Huh. This would be a lot easier, to be completely clear, if we had access to maneuver nodes. Just to know ballpark. You know what? Maybe I'm okay with clearing the input lock, calculating the maneuver node, and then removing the maneuver and estimating where it should be. Because that would be essentially ground control calculating it on their own and then feeding the information to the craft, which we have very limited control of, right? But we do have some control of it. So I feel like that's acceptable. So what I'm going to do here is... where was that? Input locks. I'm going to clear our input locks here. And that will allow us to create a maneuver here. We'll move the maneuver to, like, here. And we look at this. This is only for calculation. We're not going to be using this maneuver, right? So we put this back like this. That's basically all of that burn that we just did negated. Right? So, the question becomes, when we're here, where exactly is Eve? That's the question here. I'm trying to wrap my head around the orbital dynamics of what's going on here. Of where our encounter went and how to get it back. Because I feel like we should be able to. I mean, obviously this is not going to work, right? I'm just trying to wrap my head around what happened. Just an inclination issue, you think? We're slightly off on the inclination. Okay, so we would need to go the other direction to fix the inclination. We need to go, like, this way. Except we can't do it from here. But I don't feel like that's the core issue, though. Like, that's our closest approach, there. If we continue burning retrograde, I feel like we're gonna not get there as quickly as Eve will, right? But then again, when we come around this way, we absolutely will. Like, this will encounter eventually on its own, and that's part of the reason why we're running into some maneuver awkwardness here. For sure. But interesting. Like, this is a ridiculous amount of DV, right? It's an absolutely insane amount of DV. But this is about what I expected here. And then if we burn prograde to get there a little faster, it would need to be something along the lines of that. That gives us an encounter. And actually a pretty dang good one. In 105 days, yes, but look at how similar that is to being captured. That means that we'd have about 1,000 meters per second to work with on our descent. Which should be okay. That should be okay. Worst case scenario, we have to drive over most of Eve. I mean, worst case scenario, we're trapped on the other side of an ocean, but sure. Let's go ahead and move towards this. This is a really, really weird situation. I think we might have passed our encounter. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. And that's going to cost us in the DV department. But regardless, I want to get this all in a parking orbit this episode. So let's go ahead and move up to T minus like 28 seconds or something. I don't feel like calculating it. Let's just do it here. It'll be good enough. And then we're just going to watch for this encounter here, or a very similar one. But yeah, most of our braking has already happened here. Can definitely see that. And our Charlie module's up there, sure. Okay. Excellent. About another 300 more meters per second here. And that's completely fine. This is basically burning towards target. Which is the other idea that I had. We definitely could have done this more efficiently if I had had maneuver nodes. There's no doubt about it. We will accept this. This is completely fine. At this periapsis in 107 days. Yeah, that is correct. At this periapsis in 107 days, we're going to bring this on down. And you can see here, this is the majority of our DV. But we do have enough. It's going to be a little spicy. I think there's no doubt about that. We'd want to bring this down to approximately 100 kilometers. Like that. Okay, in we go. Very slowly catching up with Eve. This is the vast majority of our speed here. But we just want to get into a parking orbit for right now. We could always transfer more fuel into this. We don't have a docking port on here, so we'd have to put one on. It's an option, but I don't think it's a necessary option. So we will go ahead and physics warp right now as we approach T-minus 22.5 seconds, and we'll burn this now and bring that right on down. Excellent. I'm going to bring it out of physics warp at this time. Okay. I think we'll call that good. Yeah? Yeah, we'll call that good. Okay, so our inclination is a little weird. We only have 130 meters per second left. We just got to get this down ballpark, right? Ballpark of where we're trying to go. Getting these all together is going to be interesting, but it is well past time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and next episode, we are going to start getting these guys into their final positions. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and I will see you all next time.